By the way, there's a sefer written. I'll just give you a great sefer to learn. Written by Rabbi Nachman Koenig, who was my wife's grandfather. I don't know if you heard of Rabbi Nachman Koenig. Rabbi Nachman Koenig was a Breslov chassid, very, very intellectual, deep. He wrote Shari Tzadik. Anybody seen Shari Tzadik? There's 10 volumes of Shari Tzadik. My father was a Talmud of his, and I ended up marrying his granddaughter, which is he wrote. I have a letter that he wrote to my father in 1967 or 68. Sorry, 1968. And my father. It's a long story. It's a nice story, but in the letter he was meramis that my father's children would be Mishadach with his children. Wow. In the letter in 1968. And 30 years later, 20-something years later, I ended up marrying his granddaughter. Anyway, he wrote a sefer. There was a bacher who was actually my wife's uncle from the other side. His name was Shmuel Tukachinsky, and he wrote a letter he learned in Panovich, and he was getting Makurv to Breslov, and he was a Litvak, like you just said, the hybrid, whatever you want to call it. And he was in that process of connecting to the Rebbe, and he wrote a letter to Rabbi Dalia saying the Nefesh HaChaim, Rabbi Chaim Volozhiner writes, and I forgot which period, that you're not allowed to make emtzoi, shum emtzoi. Mamish writes these words about it's interesting. So it does have to do with the Torah. And at the end, Rabbi Chaim, and so he says so Ibazoi, that's a stira to the whole Breslov, the whole Yisoid of Breslov. My father said that if you took Likutei Moharan and you had to put one word, put it into one word, the word is tzadik. Likutei Moharan, if you want to put Likutei Moharan in one word, the word is tzadik. The Rebbe gives a lot of eitzes and a lot of things, but the one word, because with the tzaddik, my father used to say that you can have the biggest today's even much more technology, the biggest computers, but if it's not plugged, and they could do anything, right? Technology, but if it's not plugged into the outlet, it's garnish vet. It has no shabbos. And a toaster oven that's plugged into the outlet works. So he would say that a person that's connected to the tzaddik, even if he's a toaster oven, he's going to get the maximum potential of the toaster oven. The biggest computer in the world capable of doing everything, but if he's not connected to the outlet, he's not connected to the tzaddik, it's a garnish vet. So someone asked another question, because this is my favorite topic. When you talk about the union of tzaddik and the union of the Rebbe and the Munah, Vayaminu B'Hashem Moshe Avdoi, doesn't say Vayaminu B'Hashem, Vayaminu B'Moshe Avdoi, Vayaminu B'Hashem U'V'Moshe Avdoi. What is Munah Tzaddikim? This whole concept from in the Litvish world, even though they're changing, because you see that all the Rosh Yeshivas became rabbis already. So, but Vayaminu, the Munah Tzaddikim means. What does it mean? I'm believing in the tzaddik. Today's the last day of Midas HaYisoid. Yisoid represents the tzaddik, right? Tzaddik Yisoid Adam. Yisoid Bris, the Shema Bris, the ultimate Shema Bris. So we're talking about the tzaddik. What is this concept of the tzaddik? How do we get? What is the concept of Emunah tzaddikim? What the whole thing of Emunah? Belief. We're talking about Emunah. What's belief? Belief means I'm believing in the entity. I'm believing that the Rebbeinu Shalom created the world, and not just created the world, he micromanages. He's micromanaging. He didn't just create a world and make a system, and the system runs and al pi derech hateva, and and once in a while he gets involved when it's really, when we really daven, once in a while, and we really need his help, because he's the CEO and super manager of the world. He doesn't get involved with every single mundane thing and every emotion, every situation, every single thing. But when we learn Torah Rabbeinu, you see how the Rebbeinu Shalom is everywhere. Every leaf of the tree, everything, every emotion, every situation, everything. When we're encountering each other, when you walk in the street and there's no coincidence, there's no nothing. Everything is micromanaged by Rebbeinu Shalom, and that's the Emunah. The Eibishter gave us a gift. And we just went through Reb Shimon Bar Yochai's yahrzeit. Forget it, let's not talk about the Rebbe, let's talk about Moshe Rabbeinu. Klal Yisrael went out of Mitzrayim by Yaminu B'Hashem. The ness of Kriyas Yamsuf happened because they believe the Moshe Avdei. So what does it mean? Is it the same? It's the same. One thing you see from the pasuk. It's the exact same Amunah by Yaminu B'Hashem uve Moshe Avdei. How do you explain that?
I explain it the same way that on Leila Seder Moshe Rabbeinu is only mentioned at one time in the Haggadah. That's only that is mentioned. Ani v'lo malach, ani v'lo saraf. In the same way in the Torah here, that the way to look at Parnasa, the way to look at Teva, the way to look at the things in the world, is that nothing has koach without Hashem. That Hashem puts these things in the world, but at the end of the day, He's operating everything. We always say, Be'ezus Hashem, right? Hashem should help. God help. No, Hashem doesn't help. We maybe try to help. Hashem does everything. Hashem does everything, and we pretend that we're doing something.
So continue. So
when I
where's
see
the Emunah and Moshe Rabbeinu?
That HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose Moshe Rabbeinu to be the person that we can relate to, because that we can't, unfortunately, we don't have the ability to relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu panim el panim like Moshe Rabbeinu did, which is why by Matan Torah, which is next week, right? Which by Matan Torah, which is next week, we heard only the two. All right, whatever Moshe Rabbeinu saw, or the Keshet, whatever it was much more than even we can handle. Because we're Parach Nishmasan, when they heard Kadosh Baruch Hu even say two mitzvahs, we couldn't even accept the. So we need. Hashem set it up.
So how do
you
visualize Moshe Rabbeinu? Tell me, what was his purpose?
Eved Hashem.
And what does it have to do with us?
Because I need someone to teach me Torah. I need someone to show me how to do things.
So
I can connect to Moshe as a teacher.
What was Moshe's role?
Moshe Rabbeinu, he was called Rabbeinu, right?
Right.
A teacher.
Right. So
that's the only reason called.
So he's just teaching me.
Not just.
No. What's the purpose? What was Moshe Rabbeinu's purpose?
His purpose wasn't for me to go to his kever, because we don't know where he's buried, for specifically that reason. Hashem didn't want Aliyah lekever of Moshe Rabbeinu, which is what. Again, I is the Galiciana part of me, or the Litva part, whatever you want to call it.
Don't worry, don't feel.
The
come out, bring it all out.
Yeah,
let it out. Let's go. Come on, this is my.
The question is,
I eat this. This is what I eat.
Why did Hashem make us almost Rabbeinu? Same time, almost
why did Hashem make us all millionaires, billionaires, trillionaires? We have to do. There are things we have to do in this world. Adam Lamal Yula, the person has to do things in this world. That's the way Hashem set it up. Why? These are the questions you can't ask, right? These are the ones we don't know. This is the Emunah. This is the Emunah part, is that we don't know why Hashem set up the world the way He set it up, but He did.
Correct.
And obviously He has to give us guides in the world, because we're not all Talmidei Chacham, we're not all Gedolim, we're not all Tzadikim, we're not all
Moshe Rabbeinu's,
and also great Tzadikim, great Talmidei Chachamim, and that's their role in the world, is to teach Torah. The world is to bring the world closer to Hashem, right?
Be connecting to the tzaddik, learning Torah from him.
But again, this idea of connecting to the tzaddik, I can take any sefer that someone wrote that was a Gadol B'Yisrael, and I'm connecting to him, right? Dovavol, right? The tzaddikim, right? That they're called Chaim, right? Because their Torah lives on, and that's fine. That's great. The minute you turn it into almost a worship, an idol worship, a human worship, a tzaddik worship, whatever, then I have a problem getting to that.
I understand your problem, and I'll make a question. Your kasha stronger first, before I attempt to give you a little insight. First of all, I recommend very strongly that Rabbi Dalia wrote a sefer, a letter, a very long letter, back to this Shmuel Tukachinsky, explaining how there's no steer between the Nefesh HaChaim and the Darkei Rabbeinu. It's called Chayi Nefesh, and Blinada, if I remember, I'll get it for you. I'll try to bring it over here. It's a sefer that I think will give you an insight. Understand something before we even start talking. Before we start talking about Likutei Moharan, and this Torah Befrat is a raya. I have a raya brewer. I'll bring you a raya from Steve based to what I'm about to say. The platform has to be Emunah before you enter any kind of a discussion, because the Rebbe says beferish in this Torah that Emunah is something that the Maimon can't explain to somebody else. Yet he sees it clearly, but he can't explain. Can you explain that Hashem is here? Can you explain that Hashem is here? Who says Hashem runs? Who says there's a creator? If we want to debate it, I don't want to go into that. I don't want to go into the Kol Boyel or Yeshuvah.
Shmuel said a great thing. He says that when you get to an Emunah that's so, you get to the full Emunah, it becomes the Yediyah. I don't have Emunah that Hashem is here. I know her. I have a Yediyah that Hashem is here, but I can't prove it.
So hopefully we get to talk about that today in the Torah. Right. So first of all, I'm recommending, because this discussion is not a 1 minute discussion, and we're not going to, it's a great debate, and I don't want to take away from learning the Torah, because this Torah is going to give us the Emunah to be able to come. But the first thing you need to have the platform is, I want to understand, it's Astoros HaYediyah to you, And I want to come to this yediyah, the same way you're going with emunah. I want to come to this yediyah from the platform of emunah. Then we can start to talk and enter into the space. But in very short, the tzaddik's role is the same way the tzaddik is called Yesod, because it's keneged midas hayesod, which is the bris. What is the bris? What's the function of the bris? The bris is the connector between male and female. That is the conduit. So what's the function? The bris is a conduit. There's nothing there's no zich. You know what zich means? There is no, the bris itself is whatever it receives, it's giving. That's the function. The function of the bris is it takes from the mayach that goes through the whole body, it all enters through the bris, and whatever it gets, it gives. There's nothing that stays in the bris. The tzaddik is the exact same way. The ultimate makabel, the ultimate, Moshe Rabbeinu was Moshe Hayanav Mikol Adam. The purpose of the tzaddik was to receive and give. And the same way, the other way, to take from Klal Yisrael and bring back to Rabban Shalom. The tzaddik is not an entity, it's a conduit. It's the funnel between when you're pumping gas into the car, how you need a funnel to bring the gas into the car. That's the purpose of the tzaddik. So when we are miskasher to the tzaddik, we're not being miskasher to an entity. We're being miskasher to the ultimate makabel, the ultimate ayin, the ultimate, the Moshe Adam Mikol Adam means the ultimate shiftless, the one who went to advocate to us, to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and said, "V'im ayin mecheni no mesifrecha." You know, by the way, I heard a nice word. V'im ayin mecheni no mesifrecha is Rosh Tevis Ani Nachman M'Uman. No, because it says that Moshe Rabbeinu was not. I just heard this. I was sharing with you. Ani, if you unscramble the words, Ani Nachman M'Uman, to say that just like Moshe wasn't written in the tzaddik says that if you don't do for Klal Yisrael, take me out. I don't have an essence. My whole essence is for Klal Yisrael. We are challenged in this world, especially today, with so many challenges, and we're searching for Hashem. But there's a part of us. There's the Yetzer Tov part, which we're going to talk about now. The idea, the part of us that knows that we're with Hashem, but we're challenged with so much Hastara Sayyidiyah. We do. The Rebbe, there's a sikha that the Rebbe says, you bring was kolektai in Yiddish. Was kolektai tshuva, ich tu tshuva fach. What is your tshuva? What do you think your tshuva is doing? I'm doing tshuva for you. What was what? And there's another one. The Rebbe said, you bring me your the stones and the cement, and I'm going to build big buildings, binyanim and aflam. The tzaddik takes our little bit of ratzon and our little bit of effort, or whatever we're able to do, and he elevates it and brings it to its perfect. It's not. He's bringing our ritzonos and bringing it back to Rabban Shalom and saying and advocating for us in every way, in ruchnius and gashmius, to bring us to our ultimate tikkun, to bring the tikkun of the whole world to the yichud kudsha b'richu, apen ba'apen. The purpose of the tzaddik is not it's an entity. It's my help. He's a siyua, and by me being connected to him, I think I heard this from Rabbi Nachman. You know, you ever see the big chalus that they put by the you know what the halach is? You have a big challah, but it's missing a tiny little piece at the end. Or you have a tiny little bilkala. Which one do you make a bracha?
The sholem.
Why? But it's tiny.
Sholem.
But it's tiny.
Understand the Rebbe would find a way to
the Rebbe, if you're connected to the Rebbe, even if you're a bilkala, you're a sholem. If you're not connected, if you're not connected to the tzaddik, you could be the biggest college, but something's missing. The emunah that we have, because there's something missing in your emunah and the Eibishter. If I don't mean you, I'm not target. I'm just saying a person that has a problem with that doesn't have a problem with emunah and the tzaddik. He has a problem with emunah and the Eibishter. Not because his emunah cannot be real emunah if he can't understand that kol ma she'omer Chazal, the Gemara says that the like Sosim and Adova Yom Smile, a person, I feel right. So if you can't understand, he's not here just to teach me. He's also teaching me. His purpose is to connect me with the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's the purpose. And because the Rebbeinu Shalom is as high and as low as, but we need there's a conduit, there's a way. It's not an emtsoi. It's a tunnel. It's a way for me to get to have a connection with something bigger, side to receive and side to give, from both motions, the motion of Makam and the motion of Mashpia.
But why wouldn't you connect to Moshe Rabbeinu then? With the same
we do.
Mahalach. No,
Moshe
only. He was the greatest conduit.
Yes, and we are connecting to Moshe Rabbeinu. This tzaddik. Okay, now here's the part. This is the kasha that I wanted to tell you. This kasha is the kasha you should be asking me. Rabbi Nachman? What about the Baal Shem Tov? What about the Vilna Gaon? What about why Rabbi Nachman?
I'm going for broke.
What?
I'm going all the way back to the ultimate.
Yeah. But why? We believe that there were tzaddikim. All the tzaddikim have to come out. The Rebbe says in the Torah, all the tzaddikim come out to this one tzaddik, this Moshe Rabbeinu, and this Moshe Rabbeinu was in his galgal in four different neshamas. In the neshama of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and that's why there was no Rabbi Shimon saved Torah, and then the Arizal who went into the Pnimis Torah, the Baal Shem Tov, and the Rebbe. So we're talking about the same thing. You are calling it Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm calling it Rabbi Nachman. We're talking about the same thing. It's the same concept. So the question would be, who says? Who says? You say, because you believe Rabbi Nachman is the thing. When you learn his Torah, you understand that everything about Rabbi Nachman's Torah was to help us connect to Hashem. I said this yesterday. The Rabbi Nachman is way bigger than Breslov. Breslov is one version of Rabbi Nachman. The Rabbi Nachman's purpose is for the whole world. A man that lived 230 years ago and said, he was 38 years old when he died, said things on himself. When I was growing up, I looked at my father. My father told me, says, you'll see that the whole world is going to come. The whole world, the Rebbe said it beferish, Lo yidai atem, ela kol ha'olam kuloi tali b'rosh hashanah sheli. The whole world is going to come to, I don't know if he meant physically come to him or that tali come to him, but I looked at my father, I promise you, I like this, some people like cherry soda, some people like orange soda. Yeah, I like this flavor. I belong to this club called Breslov because that's where I was conditioned, I grew up in. But you're really a little, fanatic, wacko. Today I see it clear. I look back, wow. And my father was coming from pure emunah. The Rebbe said it. My father, whatever the Rebbe said, he looked in those glasses. That's the emunah that he had. I wish I would have in the thing, but I'm starting to see clearly. See clearly. So who's running the show here? Rabbi Nachman's running the show. It's not even a question. Have you been to Uman for Rosh Hashanah? Okay. If you come, it's an experience. I'm not telling you come because of the Emunah part, which for sure you should come from the Emunah part. But even if you're not coming from the Emunah part, the experience to see it's divine. There's no other explanation in the world. You ever went to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai for like Weimar?
No.
Okay.
No, wait, before. Yeah, but before.
If you never went
before the current.
Yes. Okay, I'm not talking about. But if you saw what goes on there and you saw the magnetic power, I don't know, the only way I could interpret it in language that we could understand of pulling. This tzaddik is pulling every yid. They can't even explain why they're there, and every type of yid. There's no differentiating from the biggest Oved Hashem to the person who seems to be the most distant part from there, and they don't even understand why they're there. There's something divine, there's something spiritual, there's something bigger, just like you start seeing when a person looks for Hashgacha Pratis and he starts seeing in his life Hashgacha Pratis, it's the same thing. So you want to make a chiluk, I don't mean you. I'm not, this is not personal. I'm not saying it in any personal way. But you want to make a chiluk, yeah, this is God. Yeah, that I got to believe in. But this divinity, not so sure. Maybe it's a dracha, maybe it's tumult, maybe it's not from the thing. And then, like I said, if you don't have the platform of Emunah and the concept of Vayaminu B'Hashem of Moshe Avli, that the Torah says it, it's not something that we said. Where the platform has to be from Emunah, I can't explain it to you. But once you enter to the space of open space to a possibility of this kind of a connection, the connecting and understanding that the richuk that we are from the Rebbeinu Shalom, that we need the help. We can do. Moshe Rabbeinu helped Klal Yisrael. If not for Moshe Rabbeinu, Klal Yisrael would have never gotten the Torah. If not, there was nothing. How did from 49 days the spheres, they went out of Mitzrayim. 49 days they makabel the Torah. When they went out of Mitzrayim, it says they were memtes shari tumah. Had they stayed one more minute, they were gone to nun shari tumah, and they wouldn't have been able to get out. 49 days later, they're in memtes shari bina, and they're getting the Torah, and the Kabbalah's the Torah, which we're about to go. How do you go from minus 49 to plus 49 in one day? In 49 days. The math doesn't add. So I heard this, I don't remember why, I think, I'm not from Breslov Grad, I heard it from outside Breslov, I don't remember who I heard it from. Vayaminu B'Hashem of Moshe Avdei, the emunah that they had, took them on the first day from minus 49 to plus 49. Hashem took them and brought them to Mem Teshari Bina, and then he brought them, grounded them to zero, and every day, that was Pesach, and every day they went, and that's why we say Sfira, and every day is Mesakin, another Sfira, and we go through the process of cleansing, the process of Biru, being Mevara, in order to get to the place of Kabbalah Torah. It only happened with these words, Vayaminu B'Hashem of Moshe Avda. That's how it happened. And it's not two amunas, it's one amunah. It's the same amunah. It's the amunah that I have in the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's the same amunah that I have in the tzaddikim, because I'm looking at the Rebbeinu Shalom with the help of the tzaddikim. And my only way to connect to you is not through the emtsoi. There is no emtsoi, because the tzaddik is nothing. The tzaddik is, there is no entity. The tzaddik is only for us.